Good morning, everyone. The object isn't everything, more books from the Blackjack Press. And that's a little picture of my setup, which is pretty humble, a Farley press. My little books are printed letterpress on cheap paper and bound using recycled cardboard from a nearby doggy treats factory. They are illustrated with lino cuts, gel press monoprints, printed found objects, commercial and homemade rubber stamps, ephemera, especially business cards, and items purchased from eBay, op shops, and $2 shops. Most recently, they also include bad poems written while walking Charlie the dog. I think grunge best describes my style of printing books. There's the local doggy treats factory where I get much of my cardboard. There's my favourite $2 shop in Sydney Road, Melbourne. And there's Charlie the dog, who I take for a walk and write my poems. Today I shall present 4 A5 artist books produced in 2023. The first is about the Indigenous Queensland policeman Watson Holmes Jacamara, created by the Australian author Madruru, Colin Johnson, in edition of 21. 2 are about Sherlock Holmes, created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, edition of 16 and 20 respectively. And the last is about the early Melbourne children's TV personality, Happy Hammond, in an edition of 16. I've been interested in Sherlock Holmes since high school, and Madruru produced this series of short stories, 3 short stories and 2 novels featuring Watson Holmes Jacamara. And in 1991, I wrote to him and he gave me a interesting reply, talking about the character and his plans for it, etc., or him, etc. So this was the basis of my book. I wanted to do something on this for a long time, and it took me a long time to sort of come to the right format, basically. But here it is, Watson Holmes Jacamara, that's the cover. 7 lino cuts on cloth. And what I did was choose 7 characters, which included not only characters from the books, but some of the influences on Watson Holmes Jacamara. So here they are. There's my image of Jacamara and a storeman from one of the stories. The Black Santa and Sheila from another 2 of the stories. The Crook, based on a Queensland crook, I guess, and some of the namesakes for Watson Holmes Jacamara. So there's Sherlock Holmes and Watson, and there's also a Boney, Arthur Upfield's character. And these were influences on the book. Now, the format I used there was an A3 sheet, which actually folds out in this sort of mapped format. And I reproduced the letter and the covers and the first pages of the stories. And also, flipping it over, you can see how it's set out there with all of the, what is it, 6 of the 7 lino cuts, the other one's hidden, that I did on cloth and pasted on. And then there's a rubber stamp print as labels. Now, for a long time, heads have interested me in terms of drawing them and then making prints of them. And in the last few years, a couple of years, I've started whittling them. And I see a relationship between my whittled heads and my drawn and printed heads. And so that's something I'm always interested in. So just take these are of Professor Moriarty and Sherlock Holmes, 2 whittled heads. And the next two books. So one was based on the cardboard box. This is a short story by Conan Doyle, and it features Miss Cushing, Susan Cushing, who received a box in the mail that contained 2 70 years that were stored in salt. And Sherlock Holmes needed to solve this particular mystery. So the book is actually contained in an envelope addressed to Miss S. Cushing, Cross Street, Croydon. Some old stamps, not as old as Miss Cushing, of course, but there that I put on the envelope. And inside that is, this is the cover, the back with the word salt, and on the front, an ear. I could get these as pairs for about $3 a pair from that $2 shop that I showed you. Inside, it's very simple. It's just a little folder, the cardboard box by me, and containing a folded A3 sheet. And that folded sheet actually slides out. It has a rubber stamp of an ear that I did. There's the rubber stamp. And when you open it up, one of my poems that I wrote while walking Charlie. Miss Susan Cushing got a nasty shock when she answered the postman's knock and received a cardboard box, not containing jocks and socks, but 2 70 years in salt, really not her fault, meant for her sister Sarah, also a spinster. And the blood stains on that, I actually found those on a hard rubbish throw out in front of, I think, a house that belonged to an artist. The other one featured Sherlock Holmes was The Adventure of the Retired Colour Man, and not a story held in great regard by Sherlockians, but the villain was up there with Professor Moriarty, and he was Josiah Amberley, and he was the retired colourman. He actually made paint. And so I think he was based on H.H. Holmes, the world's first serial killer. But the idea for this book was that I could go to the local Bunnings shop and steal, in inverted commas, their paint swatches, and I used those in part to print on. There's the cover of the book with a print of a paint can on a one of these swatches. Inside, I managed to get on eBay this particular advert for Galon paints, and so I put in the name. There was a place to advertise you. So this was Brickfall and Amberley. That was the name of the paint shop that the villain came from. Inside, there's 3 little panels in this green panel. All of these are significant to a certain extent. You take the books out, and there's these coloured panels, again, these swatches, and the panels have been printed on swatches. And so one says The Retired Colour Man, one says, where is it? And We Were Murdered up at the top there. Inside this envelope, printed on a swatch, a collaboration by me and Jan Cetek, an amateur printer that I just admire so much that he's done. He's stopped printing and he's now into penmanship. So I got him to do all of the handwriting for this little book. On the back of that, it's numbered 1 of 20, and We Were Murdered. He wrote them out so many times I could use them all over the place. And then here's my poem. Mrs. Amberley and Dr. Ernest had an unmannerly tryst, so the retired colourman had them both blitzed. In a murderous assault, the cuckold old goat trapped them in a vault, and like a vengeful ass, filled it with gas. To dispel the smell, he used green paint, but Holmes ain't tricked and Amberley is licked. And on the back of that is an old Galon advertisement that I've decorated there. And finally, the one on Happy Hammond. I'm fascinated by the Tarex show that used to be on Melbourne in the 50s and 60s, and I've done several of the characters from that particular show. I was born in 1956, and so I grew up with television, basically. I can't believe I was so good looking as a baby, but at any rate, I was. And one of my favourite shows was The Happy Show, or the Tarex Show on Channel 9. And then Happy Hammond actually went to Channel 7 and had a similar show called The Happy Show. And just for those who don't know who Happy Hammond was, here he is.
Yes, hello everyone. We've got some wonderful news for the boys and girls this week. You can have free pin-up pictures of all the Happy Show personalities right here just by watching our show. Like the details? Well, then you catch the Happy Show on HSB 7 to 10 to 5 each afternoon from Monday to Friday, and you can get details and how you can get all these wonderful pictures absolutely free on the Happy Show on Channel 7.
They don't make television like that anymore, unfortunately. Because I've written quite a lot over the years about the early history of Melbourne television, quite often when a TV personality needs a bio for the Australian Dictionary of Biography, I'm asked to write it. And I wrote the one for Happy Hammond, for example. Anyway, here is the book. On the front page, look, all of my books are pretty daggy, but this one was deliberately daggy to kind of reflect Happy. So it's got Happy Hammond, and in the smiling face, the Hammond like a mouth with a straw, and in the middle there, a top for a Tarex bottle. I got a job lot of 16 of these on on eBay, and on the back, I set into the cover a penny and wrote down the bottom, "Save your pennies," because this is the sort of message that Happy always gave. When you open it, there's an envelope with an address on it and a letter inside. And this was a letter I bought on eBay of Happy writing back as a fan mail letter, basically. And on the back of that, there's a Tarex advertisement. And I've used the name and address at the bottom as a bit like a book plate, in a sense. And this is the internals of that book, little sketches and things that I've done. Again, I got this one on eBay. This is where Happy was on radio, and then he went to television. Again, this is the numbering that's in reverse to the front. I did a very simple little lino cut of Happy on cloth, and then the same cloth that I made his hat with on the whittled figure, and framed it in a drinking straw. And then I got I asked his daughters to sign. Only one did, the other one refused to sign. So I thought, bugger you. So I wrote, Jenny Burgess refused to sign. And then this is the poem I wrote. Happy Hammond wore a tartan hat and coat and could click his fingers faster than Usain Bolt. He was always merry, talking to Ron and Jerry, but when he spoke to us, he'd say, drink Tarex, clean your teeth before going to sleep, put away your toys and be good girls and boys. There's Ron and Jerry. They were the backbone of the show, really. Ron Blaskett and Jerry G. And just to show how simple and primitive I work, this is, I don't have enough type often to set much, so this was how I set the type. And on the back is the ADB entry that I wrote. Okay, just to finish up with transformation, bibliography and print in the digital age, which is the conference topic. What fascinates me is books being used as exhibitions, sort of in that way. And certainly that's something that Hans Ulrich or Obrist has talked about in his work and ways of curating. And So these are my concluding comments. I'm sure it would be possible to make my artist books, like mine using artificial intelligence, but honestly, who would bother? Furthermore, the process of making my little books, which I really enjoy, would be lost. As the title of my presentation states, the object isn't everything. But as I am increasingly keen to incorporate 3D elements, AI might be the best way to produce multiples of them, especially my whittled heads, since it takes me long enough to make one, let alone 20. Also, John Bennett Shaw sold his Sherlock Holmes collection, the world's largest private collection of Holmes material, to the University of Minnesota prior to his death in 1994. However, his marvelous stories about the books and various items were lost. And there's Shaw in his library. And when you visited him in New Mexico, he could pull out a book and tell you a story about it, or one of the objects and tell you a story about it. And in a sense, that was what made it so pleasant spending time with him. But digital technology is ideal for recording the stories behind things like the Shaw collection. Once again, the object isn't everything. Now, I can imagine funding and all sorts of things are difficult. But if the University of Minnesota had actually spoken to him and recorded some of those stories, I think it would have really added to the Shaw collection. At any rate, there I am with John and Dorothy in New Mexico when I had hair, and it was always a pleasure to visit him and hear these stories, which, as I say, now have been lost. Thanks very much.